Okay, welcome to the Finishing Post, and this is our Cheltenham preview. We thought we'd do a podcast, and we thought this would be a cool way of bringing you some information, but also meeting the people behind the team. So without further ado, I've got Nick from Wing the Last with us. He's been a member of Finishing Post for quite a number of years now, and you may recognise Tom from the Final Furlong. It is. I'm trying to convince him slowly to come on board with the Finishing Post and be part of our team, but the Final Furlong is was one of the very best and one of the most competitive Twitters. We had a bit of a ding dong battle over the years. We had a nap off over I think it was 2016, 2017. Tom brought the best out in us, and he's got a great eye for some tips. So guys, welcome. Thanks for your time, and thanks for being part of the podcast. If you want to just introduce yourselves briefly, we'll start with Nick. Over to you, buddy.
Thanks, Craig. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Nick Goddard. I'm at Wing the Last on Twitter. Been involved with Finishing Post since about 2016, as horse racing increasingly consumed the time and attention away from work and family, and it's become an obsession now. So been part of the team with Craig for sort of 5 years or so, and looking forward to being part of this pod.
And Tom, if you have a quick introduction.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Tom. You might have heard of me from unofficially named the Final Furlong. Me and my mate started that about, what was it, Craig, 4 or 5 years ago now.
Must be about that.
We don't run it anymore, just due to sort of life changing and work commitments. But we've still got an eye for a good horse, and we're just grateful to be in the podcast and looking forward to get going.
So Cheltenham Festival is quite a special event. Tell me a little bit about your own personal experience of the festival over the years, Nick. How about yourself? So
I first went to the festival in 2016, and I'm going to be one of those awful people who starts with a bit of after timing, because 2016 was a pretty profitable festival for me. I had a £30 accumulator across the week that rolled into the Friday. And the Friday was Don Cossack's Gold Cup, and I was there on course that day and stood to make about £3,000 if Don Cossack did the business, which he did. But my main memory of that Friday was sort of getting steadily more drunk in the build up to the Gold Cup, and working out whether I should be laying him to lock in a bit of profit, or whether I should be backing the likes of Q Card or Jackadam. Just to sort of ease the pain if he didn't go and do the business. So yeah, good memories of the festival. I've been going every year since 2016, and I was there last year on the Tuesday. Felt strange last year. The pandemic was just reaching the point where people were sort of starting to realise that it was going to be something pretty serious that was going to impact all of our lives. And being there on the Tuesday, whilst I had the same sort of very enjoyable time that I do every year, I did come away from it feeling just a little bit uncomfortable as to whether I should have been there and whether it should have been allowed to take place. So look, gutted there'll be no people there this year. Gutted I won't be able to attend again. But in terms of my personal experiences, it's very special to me, and cannot wait until we're allowed back.
Before I pass on to Tom quickly, Nick, what makes it special for you?
I think my whole winter sort of revolves around it. If you're a fan of the National Hunt game and you sort of are passionate about it, you hear a lot of commentary in the media about whether Cheltenham being such a big thing is a good or a bad thing. For me, I think it's racing at its best, and we should all be proud of Cheltenham. So for me, it's special because all of the research, all of the replays you watch, all of the racing you follow, it all kind of builds towards this. So for me, it's sort of the Olympics and the World Cup of racing all in the space.
That's exactly the terminology that was used this morning at Dan Skelton's yard, to be fair. And I think they have some good runners, and we'll go through some of the runners and some of the races in a little bit. So Tom, tell us a little bit about your history with the festival.
Yeah, I was similar starting to go into Nick, really. I think my first year is 2017. Not going to lie, I can't really tell you much about the day because I had a lot of pints of Guinness. Other drinks are available at Cheltenham. But it was just a great time. I just think it brings people together, especially when you go and you feel the buzz of the race course. It's absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, when you've had a few beers, the race seems to go far too quickly. And before you know it, you're walking out back down the road and it's sort of over for another year. So it's just something that brings everyone together. I absolutely love going with friends and family, and it's something that I'll do every year. Absolutely gutted that we can't go this year, but it just makes it more excitable for next year now.
Yeah, I mean, who would have known a year ago that what would have unfolded in terms of the sort of national lockdown? I think this is lockdown 3 now since, isn't it? So we've had all sorts of tier systems in place since then, and I think there was a feeling around Cheltenham last year that maybe this should or shouldn't have gone ahead, and we were a bit lucky to get this going ahead. And there was questions asked afterwards as to whether it was the right thing to do, given the fact that literally within 2 days of the finishing of the festival, I think that the whole nation went into complete lockdown. But I think there was about 80,000 people there on Gold Cup Day, which is phenomenal, isn't it?
I was there.
It's not quite going to be the same, is it? I mean, the Cheltenham Roar is well famed, but I read somewhere this afternoon that they might well be, like they're doing the football stadiums at the moment, they might put some artificial sound in to recreate it. But you can't recreate that Cheltenham Roar. If you've not witnessed it, make sure next year when we can go and experience it, because it's something else. And one of the things I think about Cheltenham as well, having taken some great photos, I managed to position myself, of all places, right next to the finishing post the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and taken some great photographs. That people don't appreciate the gradient of that hill coming up the last, as they come around that left-hand turn, whether it be the chase course or the hurdles course, of course. That steep gradient uphill is a tough ask for any horse, let alone to finish off a champion chase or a champion hurdle. Horses have to dig in real deep to get up that hill, don't they? So I think it makes that final run in most exciting. Obviously, I was there when Annie Power spilled. I was practically right there in the Guinness enclosure, and as Tom said, there are other drinks available at Cheltenham, but I was right there as she spilled on the last hurdle, and the gasps and everybody holding their breath was just phenomenal. But I was lucky to see Apple's Jade. I've seen Altior win his first Cheltenham Championship there. I was talking actually this afternoon to Noel Fehily, who was at the Skelton Yard with us. We were looking at one of his fillies that they've just bought. He's given us some thoughts, and we'll include those in this podcast in a few moments. But I was fortunate enough to take some great photographs from winning there as well. So I have some great memories. What we have become known for, though, is we're kind of festival specialists, I think is fair to say, isn't it, Nick? And I'm sure you remember on that 2016 we tipped Sprinter Sacra to win, to come back and take the crown there. We had I think it was a 9-fold, and we were 1 short, I think it was, but we had a 9-fold that we cashed. But we had 9 horses that we'd picked. Most of them were outsiders. They weren't all odds-on favourites, but we managed to find some value as ever. And I think to £10 stakes, I think for the festival, we were something like 2,400 quid up over the 4 days, which is phenomenal. And one thing I found more recently is we certainly make less tips per day. We used to put 60, 70 tips up and cover all angles. We're much more streamlined now. We only put 1 per sort of, maybe a top 5 per meeting up at the moment. We've streamlined it right down, but we're still getting some profitable days, So the finishing post is
off, Craig.
Yeah, maybe it is putting less effort into it, but I'm trying very hard to kind of give people what they want as well. And we're always listening to what, the feedback that people put on Twitter. We know we're not everybody's cup of tea, but we've not really tried to find winners over the years. We've tried to make profit. And that's, for me, it's all a system, and it's not gambling if you, I'm a trader, for example. So, I would look at opportunities to go into a market, make profit and come out of the market. So for me, the horse is no different really. And I'm not looking at it to say, I'm the best tipster. I have no interest in playing that game at all. I'm looking for value, but I'm also looking to make profit, and I want to make profit 28, 29 days out of 30, and that's that's something that we've successfully done over the years with Finishing Post. Our nap streak, I think our record is 21 naps in a month, so that's phenomenal. When we don't tip anything below evens when it comes to the nap. We might put an MB or a third best maybe as an 8 to 11 shot or something like that, but you won't see us tipping sort of 2 to 9 shots. And as you'll know as well, the stats kind of back this up. A lot of those guys get turned over. A lot of those horses get turned over, particularly at top festivals like this. Unless you have. I was listening to Matt Chapman talking briefly on at the races Cheltenham special they did, and he was talking about having good horses. Then you have very good horses, and then you have the superstar horses. And it's one of those festivals where everybody comes together, and this year, unfortunately, we won't have the amateur jockeys there, which is a shame. Obviously, the restrictions of lockdown kind of restrict the non-professional sports people from participating, which is a pain. My background is semi-professional football, and our season's been declared null and void as well. So the amateur side of things is playing a part. I was listening to JJ Card and a few other, obviously Patrick Mullins isn't going to be there. It's going to be a little strange without some of those. It's one of those days where dreams come true, really. But I understand why the sanctions are in place. We're kind of set for a really, really entertaining week. It's just going to be different, isn't it? And I think adapt and overcome has always been the motto, I guess. And as the British public, we've been forced to do that. And we keep talking about new normal, but this is Cheltenham at the end of the day. The racing's going to be fantastic, and there's some great coverage whether you watch it on Racing TV, whether you watch it on ITV Racing, wherever you want to watch it. There's going to be some great coverage and some great races for sure. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it for months to come.
Craig, I think that point around the amateurs is interesting, and with your point around looking for opportunities, if you look at the races where the amateurs would be riding, you've got the National Hunt Chase, the Kim Muir. What I would say to people is you start looking at those races, and they're all the horses are going to be ridden by professionals now. You want to be looking for opportunities where horses are being sort of reunited with their usual professional partner. Rather than relying on the skills of an amateur. And you've also got the likes of a Shantou Flyer, for example, which is owned by David Maxwell, would have been ridden by David Maxwell. And without sort of disrespecting David Maxwell, the fact that horse is now going to be ridden by a professional, I think makes it more interesting. So I think for any listeners to this, looking at those races, the fact that you're now going to have professionals riding the horses in those, it does present opportunities as well.
Sure. Now, we didn't want to make this too Finishing Post focused or an opportunity to use this as a sales pitch or anything. And we just wanted to explain a little bit about how we approach our festival from a Finishing Post point of view. And many of you know that I've been joined by somebody that's been part of sort of Finishing Post on and off over the last 3 or 4 years, a guy called Raz, who's sort of taken over our all-weather stuff. And he's really taken the slack off of me, or taken over the reins a little bit, in as much as I can now focus on doing things like podcasts, getting out to the yards, and we've been able to introduce Nick, you and I spoke a long time ago about this whole racing club concept, where we wanted to bring some of the very good opportunities to own horses or to be part of syndicates to own race horses, and that's I was fortunate enough to be invited to the Scotland Yard this morning. But walking around there, it's just phenomenal, and Dan made time himself to come and sort of show us around. We had a look at the filly that Noel Fehily and David Crosse have purchased, and shares I think are pretty much gone on her now. We have said to Noel we would like to take one of those shares. So if anybody would like to get involved in the racing club, there are some opportunities available, but you would need to be quite quick and get in touch with us, get on the DMs and sort of speak to us about that. But let's sort of focus a little bit more on the Cheltenham side of things. Let's talk a little bit, before we go too far into the races, about everything that's going on, obviously, over in Ireland with Gordon Elliott, and the fact that obviously a lot of his horses will be either not running, will be represented obviously by a different person, obviously who's been suspended, or the fact that obviously there's a few bit of moved to different yards as well. One of the things that Noel was talking about, and Dan touched on this, is that horses like their routines, and for a megastar horse to suddenly be in a new environment with new gallops and a new food and a new home, effectively, it might put them off a little bit. But I think how do you see that playing out, Nick?
It's quite difficult to know, really, because Gordon Elliott and his team at Cheltenham would have done 90% of the work with these horses right up until we're on the eve of the festival now. It's really difficult to know how much the disruption of moving yard is going to cause to some of those horses. Some of them could take it in their stride. Some of them could be really sort of put out of kilter if they're out of routine. So only thing I would say, and the way in which I'll approach my punting for next week is probably just be a bit cautious with the Gordon Elliott runners. It's not to say that I won't back them. It's just to say that where a horse like Envoy Allen, you would be going into the festival really quite confident about him running his race. It just throws that little bit of doubt in. So just caution, I suppose. I don't think it'll affect my sort of selections.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, that particular horse is an airplane, isn't it? And I think it's going back to Matt Chapman's analogy, that's one of those superstar horses where you just think, if he goes well,
probably good enough. Yeah,
probably good enough, regardless of what's going on to get the job done. But it just throws an interesting angle in, doesn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it does. I think the first day we'll really see whether Elliott's horses are going to be, firing on all cylinders. It's a tricky one, like you said, going back to Chappers. If the horse is a superstar like Envoy Allen, he's going to win it anyway, regardless of his preparation. But yeah, they do like their sort of repetition. Maybe some of his horses that have been to Cheltenham before, they're going to notice the difference. It's a tricky one. We'll see. We'll see on the first day, I reckon. Until then, I'm going to sit tight and see what happens.
Yeah, I remember the last couple of Cheltenhams as well. Willie Mullins particularly has had a quiet first day, and everybody's kind of saying, "Oh, it's not going to be his year." And then bang, all of a sudden he's got winners coming in, and it's the Willie Mullins show again. And obviously, what do you make of the horses, Nick, that have gone to him? Did you see any of those featuring in any of the races?
Well, it's hard not to, really, because it's Willie Mullins. I think the bumper horse, I forget its name off the top of my head, but the bumper horse that's gone to him, he's got a really strong hand in the bumper now. I think he's got the Fav and the second Fav. I mean, he will obviously be delighted that he's picked up a couple of his biggest rivals, nicest horses, obviously. I mean, I wouldn't be particularly on the lookout for ones that have transferred to Willie's. I would just be looking at Willie's in general, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll be careful how we phrase that and make sure that we're we don't read too much into that. But Tom, will you be looking out for Willie's or are your attentions elsewhere?
All week, mate. No, I've got my picks, I think, and I won't stray from them. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think if we've got so close to it now, if the horse is going to win, it's going to win regardless of the situation. So I'm just going to stick with what I've got and not let the sort of saga regarding Elliott's horses get in my way or try and influence me.
Sure. What do you think, very, very quickly before we move on, what do you think to the, do you think it's a bit harsh the way they've dealt out the suspension and the fines there, or do you think it's just cause? Do you think, what's your view on that, Nick?
It's probably about right, I think. I mean, anybody in his position, they're going to get sort of tried in the court of Twitter rather than, before any sort of formal punishments are handed down. I think the IHRB did a fair enough job with both the sanction and the fine. I mean, it's been done to death, this. It's sort of consumed racing Twitter, at least for the last couple of weeks. I'm kind of glad to see people sort of just moving on from it now. We want to see the best horses racing at Cheltenham. I think the vast majority of horses that were in his care, at least, will be racing at Cheltenham. Punishment seems fair enough to me. He'll take some time away from the game and come back, and I've got no doubt he'll be successful in the future. So not much more to say really. Felt fair enough to me.
Yeah, good. Tom, what about Tiger Roll being withdrawn from the national? Unfair weight was given, obviously, as the reason. Do you think there's any coincidence between what's going on at the Elliott Yard and, the same day they announced that he's being withdrawn? What's your take on that?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that yard to know what's going on and the reasons why. I don't think it's a surprise that they have withdrawn Tiger Roll. I think he's gone up, is it £7 from when he won in 2019 at Aintree? They obviously feel that's an unfair weight and something that he's not going to be able to overcome to bid for his third. I don't know whether it's just a coincidence that obviously it's the same day as Gordon Elliott. Like I said, fly on the wall would be great to see and get some insight into what's going on. But I don't think it's a coincidence. I think because of the weight that he's been given, they've made that decision for his own sort of welfare, really, and that's I respect that. So
yeah, which is the right decision without any question. And I think the horse welfare thing is something that's been called into question a lot, and I think that's one thing that has brought the spotlight on, and it will naturally bring out some of these animal welfare people out of the spotlight. From my experience, having again been at the yard this morning, all of the yards that I've been to in the past, and all of the trainers and the jockeys that I've spoken with, there's this affinity and this undying love for these animals, and I think Cheltenham is a way to celebrate that, and I think that's what we should be doing, really. And I think, as Nick said, the best horses have got to be running in the best races, and I think it's only fair that those horses are able to participate. So without further ado, let me share my screen and we'll go through some of the races. Obviously, on the Tuesday we've got the Champion Hurdle as the feature race. On the Wednesday we've got Champion Chase. On the Thursday we have the Stayers Hurdle, and then Gold Cup Friday. So as I just shared my screen and this came straight up without any issues, that's a little overview of the races there. Obviously kicks off with, I appreciate it's quite a hot favourite there in the opener, but you can't withdraw, particularly on Cheltenham. Everybody's got a chance in these races, but any thoughts on the Mullins horse on that race? It's far from a done deal, isn't it?
I've found myself looking at this and first of all thinking it's a shite race for a Supreme. So I usually love the Supreme, usually love getting stuck into it. This leaves me thoroughly uninspired. I think the English novices are muck in general, and so I think you'll be looking for an Irish horse here. I want to appreciate it, but with the exception of Ballyadam, I can't really see anything beating him. So it's strange for me. I usually get stuck in on the first race at Cheltenham, but I'll probably be sitting on my hands or having a speculative each way on this race. I won't be back and appreciate it. I
was thinking as well that a lot of the horses coming into this, with the exception of Appreciate It and Soaring Glory, that's had a winner last time out. There's not really much form. Obviously, Metier's going for a 4-timer in the Harry Fry yard there. There's not really any horses coming into this in top form, is there? So it's one of those where Willie Mullins just has this knack of getting his horses in tip-top shape and wound up and ready for the festival. So, things do point in that direction. But, we will give our tips out on the day. So I'm not certainly giving a sort of an anti-post recommendation there. But, it does look like it's in the hands of the fave there, and it's kind of his to lose. But you look for value elsewhere in the market there. Second fave there at 11-2, so you've got 6-1, 7-1, and then out to 10s, 12s from there. So, it's one of those where it could be an outsider that steals the show, or it could be that, Appreciate It's so revved up and ready to go that, it kicks off the festival in style there. Let's have a look at the next race. Obviously, we've got the Arkle Chase there. Highly fancied Shishkin, not really done an awful lot wrong, but we've not seen the horse under pressure very much. Rightfully favourite, I think, but Energymene's a decent horse, isn't it? And revved up, and just looking at those form stats there, you've got ones all over the board. All Mankind, got a chance to see him and give him a pat on the nose this morning. Obviously the Scottons are hoping that he goes well at a decent price. And then you sort of look further down. I have to say the Henderson horses, as much as, again, Henderson's another trainer that gets all his horses wound up and in top condition, ready for the festivals. But not any massive form from that yard to speak of as well. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the yard. They've had some great winners over the last few months, but they're not. The yard doesn't seem to be as strong as it has been in previous festivals. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. I think they're going to have to pull some out of the bag this year if they are going to, they want to be on tip-top form. I think you're absolutely right. Trainers like Henderson, Willie Mullins, they're always thereabouts. They have their horses fired up, and I think it'll be the same this year, especially with no crowds. I think it might change it a little bit. I think with it's a bit like football where there's been no crowds. The more favoured teams are starting to win. So I think the card is right. The prices are right.
I think the reason I mentioned the Henderson yard there is that out of all of the Henderson's runners in the festival, Nick, I think this is the one that's got the best chance, isn't it? This just going to be something else, isn't it? And it's had a great prep. It ticks all the boxes. It's just going to be a case of how does it react under a little bit of pressure. And I think and hope for the spectators' point of view, the Mullins horse gives it a bit of a battle, and we get something a little bit special up the final straight, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think we will in this race. I mean, the way Henderson talks about this horse, they think he's the next Altior. I think if you go back and watch his Supreme, there are plenty of hallmarks of Altior in this horse. He sort of hits that, and you call it a flat spot or whatever, sort of as they're coming down the hill. But the way he worked his way into the race and then picked up Abracadabras on the line in the Supreme last year, that for me is the standout bit of form from this entire field.
And he's probably likely to need something like that to fend off an edge. I mean, up the hill there.
Yeah, I think it'll be a terrific race to watch this, but I think Shishkin gets the job done.
Okay, great. Let's have a quick look at the next one. We won't go through all the races. We'll kind of pick highlights of the week. But we'll skip, actually. And again, no disrespect to anybody that's got any interest in the Ultimate Handicap, but we'll go to the Champion Hurdle, which is obviously the highlight of day one. Again, I think the right favourite, given the preparation and the form leading into the race, and the fact that this horse we believe will be ridden by Rachel Blackmore. She'll be the first female jockey to win the Champion Hurdle, which I think would be momentous as well. And I think I'm sure you'll agree with me, but the sooner we stop referring to them as female jockeys and just calling them jockeys, credit to the females that are kind of flying the flag a little bit. But her in particular, I think it'd be great to see her kind of hoist her colours at the festival and get this one home. What do you think to the Henderson horse here? Is obviously it's JP McManus' horse. Goshen came back with a bit of a plum in the last couple of weeks, and that was a good run, but he's been out of form a little bit from previous there. It's looking like a 3-horse race, isn't it?
Maybe. I mean, first thing to say is I've listened to a few previews and other pods in recent weeks, and I think I may now be the only person who's still with Epatante in this race.
Okay.
I think Honeysuckle is coming for a load of support. She's now Fav, undeniably impressive in her prep this season. But I think the market is overlooking Epatante a touch. I mean, I saw on Sky Bet earlier you can get 5-1 on Epatante, and that just seems a mad price to me. I know you're guessing a little with regards to her welfare because she looked below par in the race where Silver Streak beat her, but she was absolutely electric in the Champion Hurdle last year, and I think a repeat of that wins this. Only other thing to say on this race is I really like Abracadabras for a place. Really, really nice form behind good horses this year. The pace of this race should set up in a way where he can just hack along towards the back of the field. You can have horses that go too fast in this race. There are loads of these that want to go forward. So I could see him running on into a place behind them. So I don't necessarily think it is a 3-horse race. I think there is at least one or two others who could get involved.
Good, yeah. I think you look down the card as well, and you've got good horses like Sco Royale, Sharjah's in there as well. The race does have a little bit of depth to it, but looking at the betting, and people only seem to be talking about the top three. And what did you think to Goshen's return a couple of weeks ago, Tom? Were you taken by that performance? I mean, he kind of romped home, didn't he, and left everybody else in his wake. But is that going to be enough to get this one done?
I don't think so. I think if I remember the race rightly, I think Goshen got a bit of a rest down the back straight before turning into the home. He won't get that in this race. It's a champion hurdle. There's going to be plenty of pace on. He's not going to get a breather. I think this race is similar to the champion hurdle we had a couple of years ago, where we had Lorena. You have to remind me there was Bouvardere. I can't remember the third horse, and obviously it was picked up by Esport Allen, was it? I think.
Yeah, I think it might be.
I'm with Nick, where I think Abracadabras can definitely run into a place. I think one of the top three will fall away towards the end of the race. I'm with Honeysuckle, to be honest. I'm with the fave. I think Honeysuckle will win. It's going to be close between her and Epatante. Goshen could absolutely romp home, or it could finish, back in the division. So I'd be looking at Abracadabras for a place if it runs well, and I fully expect Epatante and Honeysuckle to be battling out after the last.
So let's just pick some of the other top races throughout the rest of the week rather than go through race by race, because obviously as we said before, we'll all have our own views and tips going out for the punters, and we'll have sort of write-ups and some inside information and some insight into why we're picking what we're picking. So we won't do that tonight. But Monkfish there, 8 to 11 fave on the Novices Chase. What's your thoughts on that race, Nick?
Bomb-proof. Really, really hard to see any holes in either his form, his jumping, his ability to handle conditions. He's got course form. Of all of the short price fabs over the week, I think this lad is by far the most solid of all of them. So, Tom,
did you manage to catch the run of Royal Pagal for Venetia Williams a couple of weeks ago, Tom?
No, I didn't. I missed that one.
I was quite impressed by the way that ran. Finished off the race quite nicely. It was quite neat and tidy over the jumps. Any chance of that causing? Obviously, it's owned by the Rich Ritchie as well. Any chance that will cause an upset here?
I'm not sure they're going to run it in.
No, it's going nothing.
There's dual entries there, isn't there? So it might well be that it's not. It might be sort of featuring elsewhere. But looking down the card there, I have to agree with you there, Nick. I do think that's probably more. I'm not going to call it a banker because I don't think there's such thing at Cheltenham. But I think that's one of the odds on that's probably going to come away with the one in the column there, isn't it? I think. Just
can't see what beats him.
Yeah, I mean, and fair play. If something does turn it over, then they'll have done really well. I mean, obviously Nichols Yard is in top form at the moment as well, isn't it? Cobden's riding winners for fun at the moment, so there's obviously that angle there as well. But looking at that race reasonably closely, I think Monkfish looks a fair bet there. Chuck and Poursoir in the Champion Chase. What are your thoughts on that race? For me, that one's going to be a little bit more open, but we know the class of the Mullins horse there speaks for itself. Min's obviously making potentially a reappearance. Nuba Negra's a decent horse there for the Scotland Yard. Again, they're in top form at the moment, and we just don't know what kind of Altior is going to turn up. We don't know what sort of health he's in. Whether he's recovered from his injury. Didn't look himself in his last race, but there was glimpses of the old Altior in there. But again, the Fav looks reasonably tidy bet there, doesn't it?
Yeah, difficult to pick holes in Chuck and Poursoir. I suppose the only thing that you could identify as a potential hole is he's never been to Cheltenham. There's no course form there, which is not something you can say of some of his rivals. So that for me is the only doubt. I'd be tempted in this race to have a look at an each way bet on Put the Kettle On. Really, really impressive at the festival last year. I think 10-1 probably underestimates estimates her chance. So I will probably be backing her each way.
Yeah, looking at the value angle, I mean, I like Belito Log as a horse as well. I think it's a great horse. Always gives an honest ride. And Nuba Negra as well. You know, again, had an opportunity to meet that horse if that's such a thing today. But you know, again, that's another chance for the Skeltons, again in great form. And again, depending on declarations, Sky Royals in that race there as an early declaration. You know, that race will be an interesting one. But again, it seems to point to the Fave potentially being turned over with lack of course form, with the option of obviously a couple of outsiders there. But, you know, it could come from anywhere, the threat really there, couldn't it? There's some good horses in that race, isn't there?
I quite like First Flow, to be honest. I think 14-1's a good price, and he beat Politolog in January. You know, Politolog's right up in the market, 8-1. I think the win of the week could be if Altior could get up and reclaim the crown. I think everybody in racing would absolutely love that. But I might have a little go at First Flow each way. I think 14-1's a nice price and could definitely run into the places.
Good stuff.
An interesting, well, a couple of interesting stats on this race. So the last 12 winners had all raced at Cheltenham before, and only one Irish trained winner in the last 8. So if you're looking for reasons to oppose Chacun Pour Soi, you've got a couple there.
Yeah, and obviously there's any reason it's you know, it's one of those festivals where, you know, it doesn't always go to plan, does it? You know, so, you know, it's that fairy tale potentially, and you know, it'd be great. I agree with Tom. It would be great to see Altior get up that hill and get home in front, and I'm sure, you know, the Bourneville will give that a cracking ride and give it everything. You know, and if he's in good health, then he'll give it his best, as he always does. We talked briefly about the Envoy Allen move to the Bromhead Yard. Still favourite in that race. Obviously, the Benjamin declared in that race as well, but not likely to figure in that race, I wouldn't have thought. But you just don't know, do you? You know, we're a week out, but we're still not 100% sure of the final declarations. You've got Monkfish in that potentially as well. I don't see that. I think that's, you know, we'll obviously need to tell us close to the time. And if people are getting on early, you would potentially need to look at your sort of non-run and non-bet type approach with that. But
so Craig, when you were at the Skeltons earlier, did they mention anything about Chamblou?
They did. They think it, you know, it has a good chance. They were quite confident in a lot of their runners. You know, obviously coming into form, both Harry and Bridget Andrews are riding winners at the moment. And you know, they come into form at a really good time. One of the horses they did pick out was Roxana. They did think that, you know, that has a particular chance in a particularly tough race. You know, Noel is a bit of a fan of Nuba Negra as well. So Noel Fehily, he mentioned that Nuba Negra each way has got a decent shout in his race. But you know, we'll see how they go. I think the Skeltons had a good Cheltenham last year, and the year before they had a couple of winners as well. So they're usually there or thereabouts. But you know, if anybody's going to spoil the Mullins show, it's going to be you know, the Nichols Yard. I think obviously you can't discount the Henderson horses. There's some great horses there. But I think this year, I think the Skeltons have had a great season. I'd love to see them, you know, with their horses in the winners of closure. I think that, you know, it's well deserved. And from what I saw today, it's a fantastic yard, and I wish them every success with their races next week. We won't go too much more into some of the other races. What we'll try and do is potentially pick out some of the other races. Are there any other races that you think? So Paisley Park's quite a clear favourite in the Stayers. You know, do you see anything beating that, Nick?
Yeah, I do actually. I think the Stayers is one of the deepest races of the week. I really, really like Paisley Park and Time Hill. Obviously, their form intertwines with one another through this season. They've had a couple of really good races up against one another. There's two that I like at each way prices. I really like the Storyteller. Ran a great race last year. The other one I like, who you can't even see on the odds board there, is Liz Nagar Oscar, who won the race last year. I can't understand why he's the price he is. So there you go. He's 14-1 there.
Yeah, I just saw him there at the bottom. Yeah.
really like both of their chances, and I think they're both overpriced. So I think this is a really good race.
This is the one to take on. This is the one where I think we're going to get a bigger price winner in this race. I think this is one of those races where, Paisley Park undoubtedly is a great horse, and it's a cracking yard. But I just think this is one of those races where a winner could come from anywhere in this one. And I think, this is one of those races where I think you're going to get a decent price winner at good odds, and it might be worth, taking a couple of bigger price each ways in this one just to back yourself a little bit. But Tom, you got any fancies in this race?
I'm with Nick actually. I like Liz Oscar, won it last year. No reason not to like it. 14 to 1's a big price, and for a horse that's been there and done it, I'm very keen on that.
Potentially overlooked in the market, isn't it? It's a bit of a strange price, but
it is.
Preparation may well be a factor there. But I think, again, I do think it's one of those races where you're going to get a winner from higher up the odds than the favourites there. What about Paisley Park's chances, Tom? What do you think?
I think Time Hill beats it, to be honest. I forget the course they ran at not so long ago where Paisley Park just got up on the line to beat Time Hill.
It was Ascot, wasn't it?
Ascot, that was it. And I think it'll be another close run race. Whether it's the two of them at the end battling it out, I'm not sure. I think it's going to be Dickey probably riding Time Hill, and he'll want to get back at Paisley Park and get the win. I think he will beat him, but it's too tough to call. It's such a close race, and like you said, a wide open one and a big price might just nick it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hate calling myself a tipster, but as somebody looking for value, trying to make profit out of the week, they're the races where you go bigger there, isn't it? For me, I would be looking higher up the card. Listener Russ, I think, is an obvious one to go for. Just again, we talked about course form and course experience before. That sometimes can be a factor. So I potentially think that's overpriced. We'll just have to see how the race pans out. Just picking out a couple of other ones here. Tritonics that had a good few runs over the last few weeks, got up nicely last week, I believe. I believe we took that, actually. It might have been our nap that day. March has been good. We've been banging in the naps there. I think that was a good runner for us last week. Album Photo in the Gold Cup. Let's jump to the Gold Cup. That's obviously the feature race of the week. You've got kind of famous names in there like your Frodons and your Native Rivers. Plutarch's in there as well. Champ. Champ must be getting on a little bit now. He must be an older horse in his later years now, I believe. Is that right? Or have I got him confused with another? Album Photo is the favourite there. What are we thinking with that? Is that another race where you go higher up the order, or?
I think Album Photo wins it. I think he'll win his Gold Cup. Just great horse, fully experienced in this race. I think there's going to be a lot of pace on.
Yeah,
I think he retains his title. There's going to be a lot of pace on in the race, and I think it'll absolutely suit him just to sit in behind a few of the ones that are going to sort of take up the running. Like Kenboy and Frodon and Native River, they'll be battling for the lead. They'll push on. I think he'll sit in behind and hopefully.
Frodon's just one of those horses that doesn't go away easily. He's one of those. No. He's a stayer, isn't he? And I think he's even easily underwritten or overlooked. But if he's still in there as they sort of come round the turn and head up the final straight, if he's still in with a chance, I think he'll give whoever's with him a good old battle up the hill there. But
take the world of beating.
You would expect Album Photo to come home with that. I would imagine Willie's got him prepped and sorted and ready. It'd be, and again, another interesting race. I mean, you've got Mellon in there as well. Not really any form to speak of. And depending on declarations, you've got Royal Pagal in there as an entry. But, again, I'm sure potentially will feature in other races. But, again, difficult to look a little bit beyond. It's not one of those races potentially where you'd go too big a price. Album Photo's got it done in style last year. I'm not sure if you remember the race, but as it unfolded, it just looked a classy horse, stuck really well to its task. Jumped nicely as well, which I think is a major factor in races like this,
Yeah, obviously only beat Santini by a head, coming to the line. Was hanging on, but still got the job done.
Yeah, I think stamina is obviously a massive factor in these races. Do you think that kind of sort of finish will give him the experience he needs to get it done again this year. So you notice Santini, for example, this year is at 14-1. So the market doesn't fancy him to repeat last year's exploits. I mean, it's again, it's one of those situations where coming up that hill, if a question's asked of the horse, it could go either way, couldn't it? Sometimes the horses will dig in and stay strong. Sometimes they fold, and there won't be the distraction of the crowd this year for sure. That might be a factor, but certainly an interesting race to watch. Difficult to know which way to go with that, and again, we won't decide which way we go on that until closer to the day, so we get the actual final declarations in place there, because there's a few in there that I don't think will run in that race, but it's certainly going to be an interesting race. So just to sum up, are we going with the fave there? Are we on Albion, or are we thinking there might be some value elsewhere?
I think I've got a slightly different opinion to you guys. I mean, it's difficult to get a handle on Albion Photo because he doesn't race and hasn't raced against any of this field this season. He's been given the exact same prep by Willie Mullins, where I think he went to Tremor and had a hack around against significantly inferior rivals. So it's not like there's any form lines for this season to get a real handle on where he's at. I mean, you just have to assume that Willie Mullins has got him prepared to the same level as he had previously. I can't believe I'm going to say this in public, but I'm actually with Champ. I always seem to be on the wrong side of Champ. I was with him when he got done by City Island in the Ballymore. I was against him when he came and nutted Manila Indo on the line in the RSA last year.
Yeah.
And so, I
think we were with him when he fell the time before that as well, which is
in the Dipper. So you could probably wager that if I'm with him this year, he's the one to oppose. But I was super impressed with him in his only start this season, and I think he's always been held in really, really high regard. And he gets up the hill. So even if he's sort of hanging out the back of the telly, sort of coming down the hill, I still wouldn't write him off. So I'll be with him. I think the price has gone. I don't think 9-2 is a particularly attractive price. If you get bigger on the day, then that would be a bit more tempting. But yeah, I think Champ as a rival that Albion Photo hasn't yet faced, and someone who's a bit of an unknown quantity at this trip, I can see Champ winning. So I'll be with Champ.
I like that. It's good. This is the whole reason we're doing this. I think I didn't want this to be what I think is going to win necessarily, or what finishing post are going to go with. I just wanted to openly chat about the races, get some different angles on it. I'm still undecided. I'm tempted to go with the Mullins horse there, but I am a fan of Frodon, I must admit. If any of those, I mean, Native River's a cracking horse as well, isn't it? Just looking there, I think the deeper the race and the more of a slug it is, I think Frodon keeps re-entering the equation for me. So
I think if Frodon wins the Gold Cup with Bryony Frost on board, Ed Chamberlain will come in his pants live on television.
I just think, what about the weather? Coming into it, I mean, the ground seems to be hardening up nicely, doesn't it? So going may well be a factor in some of these races, but I think the heavier the better for horses like Frodon there. But as we said, we just take it as read that Albion Photo's prepped and ready for the race, and and as you said earlier, Tom, as well, come the first couple of races, we'll know what sort of state the Elliott horses are in. We'll know what state the Mullins horses are in, and we'll see what kind of Henderson horses have arrived at Cheltenham as well. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure. So what we'll do is we'll finish on both of your highlights for the week. So Nick, what are you most looking forward to for the Cheltenham week?
I am most looking forward to Shishkin winning the Arkle.
Okay, and Tom?
I'm looking forward to the Champion Hurdle. It's a great race this year. It's quite open. I would love it if Goshen was to win. I was stood in the stands last year when he fell at the last, and I had my money on him. So I would love it if he could win. But if I don't know, it's just such an open race. That's why I'm looking forward to it.
Great, good stuff. Well, we'll wrap up there. I think we're close to the hour, which is perfect time for the podcast, which is what I wanted. Thank you both for your time. Thank you for making this a really interesting podcast. It's something I'm really tempted to do more of. You know, I'm conscious that I have a face for radio, so you know, I don't necessarily want to be plastered all over the Twitter sphere, but you know, talking about racing with enthusiastic people, and you know, Nick, you've been involved with the Finishing Post for a very long time, and you know, you're one of our original investors, which I think, you know, your help and insight has driven us forwards. And you know, I think we started this in 2015 with 200 and so followers. We started to think, you know, we've got something here. There's a nice little product here. And, you know, I think when we first opened up investment, we were around about 2,500 followers, and we're just getting close to that elusive 7,000 followers mark now. But, you know, it frustrates me still that you put something out there like I think we had a 16-1 winner yesterday, and you get 2 likes, and you think, well, you know, what more have we got to do to reach this? So what I'm hoping we can do is deliver a really cracking set of tips for Cheltenham. You know, it's Tom, it's your neck of the woods, I think, isn't it? You're a local to Cheltenham, I believe, aren't you?
Yeah, not too far away from me, down in the West Country. So yeah, not a far journey. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some great memories of being at the course, but also watching it on TV as a younger lad as well. And I think you know, most people will know the national and have always bet on the national, regardless whether they're into horse racing or not. But for me, Cheltenham's is the be all and end all of the national hunt season, and I'm, you know, looking forward to it. I personally don't have any highlights. I just think the whole week's just going to be, you know, I'm going to be glued to the TV. Obviously got work and other commitments to do, and you know, we'll have tips at other you know, a lot of our naps and things for the week will probably be at other meetings rather than, you know, gambling on stuff at Cheltenham. But you know, I'm personally looking forward to a great week of racing. You know, hopefully the horses all come home safe and we get some more Cheltenham memories. I'm just, you know, really looking forward to the week. So again, thanks for your time, guys. We will do this again. I think we've got Ascot coming up not too far away. We've got the National soon as well. So we may well do another podcast then. But for now, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for being part of this. And thanks for making this our first podcast, making it a good one. Take care. Good night. And we'll see you again. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Craig.
Cheers.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Bye.
Welcome to this very special segment of the podcast. I was very fortunate this afternoon to be able to speak to both Noel Fehily and David Crosse, who've both ridden winners at Cheltenham. And I asked David in an interview what it was like from a jockey's perspective going into the festival and what it's like. And I think that's an interesting insight. He also gives some thoughts on the festival. And I had a chance to ask Noel Fehily his thoughts on the week. And here are a few of his thoughts, just for you to see. Just going to summarise them now. And here's the thoughts of David Crosse in an interview that I managed to grab him for this afternoon whilst we were at Dan's Scout Yard. So from a jockey's point of view, obviously punters are excited about Cheltenham, even though we can't watch it as a spectator this year. What's it like as a jockey? Tell us about it from your perspective.
As a jockey or as an ex-jockey? When I was a jockey, to be fair, riding at Cheltenham was always massive. I was lucky enough to have a winner there in 2002 in the Kim Muir chase in a horse called Bushkeeper. And I was only 19 at the time, and I was riding loads of winners, and you just think, oh, you ride winners at Cheltenham, it just, that's what happens. And came back in, I remember walking back down, when you pull up and walking back down that chute, when you have 60,000 people roaring and screaming, especially because he was a favourite, he was 5-1 favourite for Nicky Henderson. And walking back in, I was actually looking at a picture the other day, just walking back into the enclosure and the smile on your face. But you know, everything happens then, I think, you know, as you get older, you know, and you haven't had that for a long time. I always wanted to go back and experience that again, and I always said to myself I'd enjoy it even twice as much. But the problem is you get home from racing and you're racing again the next day, so you don't really, bar going out for a quiet bit of dinner in the evening, you don't really get to celebrate, because it's such the wheel is always turning, and the next day you're always doing something else, you know. But to have a Cheltenham winner, it is what the dream is all about.
And something you would like to do as a racing club down the line?
Yeah, obviously myself and Noel have a syndicate business. We were potentially having one last year, but he got balloted out. This year we'll just have the one runner. There's no point going there unless just for a day out. You gotta go there if you think you got a horse good enough to win. We got a horse called Come On Teddy in the Pretemps final, and he's had a great preparation this year. He's been lightly raced. We still think he's improving, hence why we wanted to go straight to Cheltenham after his last run. And we think there's a bit of mileage left in him, and he's going to be a lovely chaser. But the owners are absolutely buzzing just to have a runner. And if he can go out and finish in the first 6, we'll be absolutely delighted. But, you know, if he wins a Cheltenham Festival race, that will be a dream come true.
Fantastic. And what would your top 3 picks for the week be, personally, looking at the festival as a whole? You obviously got the champion hurdle, champion chase, Gold Cup. Any
I love mares, and I love Dan Skelton's mare, Roxana. She obviously won the mares hurdle a few years ago. Dan says she's in great form. I just love the way Harry rides her, just with loads of confidence. And I love a good mare. Obviously you had Quivega over the years, came back and kept winning the race, but I think she'll have an outstanding chance. I love Shiskin. Obviously a Supreme winner going back for the Arkle. That's going to be a cracking race with All Mankind and Energy or whatever you call him, of Willie Mullins's. That's going to be probably one of the races of the festival. And as an each way prospect, I think Come On Teddy is 12-1. I'd much rather he was 20-1. He'd be a cracking each way bet, but he's an each way bet now, and he will run his race. He's a strong traveller, which you need for around Cheltenham, and he's a course and distance winner, so he will have a massive chance.
Well, wish you all the best with that. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for a great day out. Thanks, David.
No matter.